Welcome to the deep dive. We take some incredible sources and, well, we pull out the absolute best insights for you. Today, we're digging into something really fascinating, often kind of misunderstood: abstinence. And forget what you might think. This isn't just about, not doing something. Our sources, they're packed. Seriously rich stuff here, reframing abstinence not as giving something up, but as this dynamic path to real personal growth.
That's exactly it. Our mission today: cut through the noise, give you the quick version, the shortcut to being really informed about this choice. Because for a lot of people, it's about gain, like significant gain. We're talking reshaping how you see yourself, finding this incredible mental clarity, unlocking potential you didn't even know was there. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Someone chooses abstinence. What happens right away? Tangibly, physically, energetically.
Well, the most straightforward benefit, right off the bat. It's a foolproof shield against STIs, sexually transmitted infections, and unplanned pregnancies. That alone brings a huge amount of peace of mind. And for many, a real feeling of control over their own body, bodily autonomy.
Yeah, that peace of mind sounds significant.
It is. And from a purely medical view, it's important to say this loud and clear: long-term abstinence, it doesn't pose any significant health risks for most people.
That's key, isn't it? Because I think there's this idea floating around that not being sexually active is somehow, inherently unhealthy.
Exactly. That's a common misconception.
Yeah.
And look, while it's true, regular sex is linked to certain, let's call them physiological perks.
Like what specifically?
Okay, so things like maybe a temporary immunity boost, some cardiovascular benefits, increased heart rate, hormone release. For men, potentially better prostate health from frequent ejaculation, maybe reducing inflammation. For women, stronger pelvic floor muscles. Those things are real. But, and this is the crucial pivot, our sources make it really clear these benefits aren't exclusive. Not at all. Your body is incredibly adaptable. You can cultivate that same kind of well-being through other means.
How so?
Think about, say, consistent exercise. Gets your heart rate up, releases endorphins, right? Or practices like yoga, great for core strength, stress reduction, which in turn affects your hormones. So it's not about missing out on physical benefits. It's more about finding different paths to similar kinds of physical and emotional health.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously not just swapping out activities for physical health points. You mentioned this idea of redirection of energy, not suppression. That feels like a totally different way of looking at it.
It absolutely is. And this is where abstinence stops being just an absence and becomes like a proactive, really intentional choice. Our sources talk about how this significant biological drive, the focus, the sheer time that often goes into sexual or romantic pursuits, it becomes available.
Available how?
It's not just like clearing your schedule. It's about channeling a really potent primal energy, like a core life force, and deciding where it goes consciously. So this freed up energy, you can pour it into totally different things that might align more deeply with you, like deep meditation or sparking creativity, maybe accelerating personal growth.
Wow.
Yeah, this redirection, it lays this powerful foundation for real change. You're taking what many see as just instinct and turning it into fuel for self-evolution, like tapping into a hidden power source inside you.
Okay, so we've talked this energetic redirection. Let's shift inward. What about the mental and emotional side? What kind of profound shifts happen there? What does that clarity look like?
Oh, the mental and emotional changes can be huge, really profound. When you redirect that energy we were talking about, it can significantly dial down stress and anxiety. This is especially true sometimes for people healing from past emotional stuff, maybe trauma. It gives you this vital mental space.
Like a sanctuary.
Kind of, yeah. A quiet inner space to process emotions without the extra layer of complexity that intimate relationships can sometimes bring. For others, it just simplifies things. You intentionally put romantic pursuits on the back burner for a bit, and boom, your focus sharpens.
On what, for example?
Career, maybe? Hobbies you never had time for? Deep personal goals? You often see this real surge in productivity and getting things done, and maybe one of the most powerful shifts, it's in self-esteem.
How does that work?
Well, if your sense of worth isn't tied up in, external validation, sexual appeal, romantic attention, it starts to grow from the inside out organically. You foster this deep sense of self-control, of empowerment that isn't dependent on anyone else.
I can see that. But I imagine it's not always like an instant switch flip, right? There must be bumps in the road initially, maybe some irritability, mood dips, especially without those hormones like oxytocin, dopamine. It's a big change.
You are absolutely spot on. Those initial hurdles, they're real, and people often underestimate them. Your body, your mind, they need time to adjust to not having those specific chemical rewards they might be used to.
So how do people navigate that?
What's fascinating is how those challenges actually push you to develop healthier, more sustainable ways of coping. Instead of looking outside yourself for emotional regulation, you're kind of forced to build resilience from within. Things like consistent mindfulness, meditation, getting into regular physical activity that feels good, or really investing in deep platonic friendships.
So the challenge itself becomes a catalyst.
Exactly. In fact, there are psychological studies like a 2022 review, I think it was in the Journal of Sexual Medicine, suggesting abstinence can significantly boost self-regulation and emotional stability after you get through that initial adjustment. This inner work, it cultivates this profound clarity that doesn't just, happen to you. It actively redefines your strength. It turns that inner turmoil into a source of real, lasting power.
Turning inner turmoil into power. That's quite a thought.
Yeah.
So, okay, connect the dots for us. This freed energy, this sharpened focus. How does this lead people towards finding their true north, their purpose?
Right, this is where it really culminates, where that initial redirection starts to bloom into something bigger. With that energy channeled and that newfound clarity, often this deeper sense of purpose just emerges. It becomes undeniable for some. You can even look back historically for compelling examples.
That's cool.
Figures like Nikola Tesla, he famously claimed his inventive genius was directly fueled by choosing abstinence. Or Friedrich Nietzsche, his world-changing philosophy, it really thrived on this intense self-discipline. They weren't just avoiding something, they were actively harnessing this immense internal force.
And how does that play out today for regular people?
We see similar kinds of personal awakenings all the time. Maybe it's through seeking spiritual purity or committing to some higher calling. Or sometimes it's just this heightened self-awareness, this process of really clarifying your own inner values, your strengths. That energy that might have gone outwards towards romance or sex, it turns inward. Or it gets channeled powerfully towards big ambitions.
The creativity might surge.
Absolutely. You see it manifest in art, music, writing. Careers often shift from just jobs to real vocations, feeling much more meaningful. And platonic relationships. They can deepen incredibly because the focus shifts to authentic connection, not based on the physical. There was even a 2024 survey, I believe, by the American Psychological Association, noting that something like 68% of abstinent individuals reported more motivation for personal projects within just 6 months.
Wow, 68%.
Yeah. So this alignment with purpose, it genuinely reshapes your life's trajectory. It gives you this incredibly profound sense of direction, of fulfillment, like your inner compass finally locks onto true north.
This sounds amazing, truly transformative. But okay, let's get practical. Someone's listening thinking, okay, I get the concept, but how do I actually channel this energy? Give us some real takeaways.
Absolutely. Intention is key here. You need concrete strategies. You can't just expect it to happen. So, okay, if you want to spark your creative side, maybe pick up that guitar that's been collecting dust. Start outlining that novel. Explore photography. Just start. If it's physical redirection you're feeling, challenge your body, train for a marathon maybe, get into martial arts, commit to a serious yoga practice, something that pushes you.
And mentally.
Yeah, mental or intellectual pursuits. Expand your horizons. Learn a new language. Take a tough philosophy course online. Immerse yourself in deep reading, meaningful discussions. Feed your brain. And crucially, don't forget connection. Actively deepen connections through non-sexual intimacy. This is how you counter potential loneliness, build that sense of belonging.
What did that look like, practically?
Volunteering for a cause you believe in, mentoring someone, or just dedicating real, quality, undistracted time to your family, your close friends. There was research noted on the Harvard Health blog in 2023 highlighting that getting involved in structured activities after choosing abstinence actually cut the risk of depression by about 25%.
That's significant.
It really is. So these aren't just ways to pass the time. They're powerful outlets. They turn abstinence into this proactive growth strategy. You're actively turning potential into real, tangible progress.
That point about connection is so important, countering loneliness. But let's talk about the outside world. What about the social side? The challenges, maybe opportunities that come up, navigating relationships, potential stigma? That can't be easy.
No, it's definitely a major dimension to consider. Friends, potential partners, they might question your choice. That can lead to, well, awkward conversations, or people might just assume you're not interested or that something's wrong with you.
especially in cultures where sex is seen as like a default part of adult life.
Exactly, where it often defines adulthood or partnership. There was a Pew Research study in 2023 found something like 42% of Americans view prolonged abstinence kind of skeptically. They often link it maybe unfairly to religious extremism or sometimes even health issues, which, as we said, isn't really medically accurate for most. That stigma is real.
So how do you deal with that skepticism?
Well, navigating it isn't just about defense. There are unexpected opportunities too, like open, honest dialogue. It can actually build a surprising amount of respect. When you explain your reasons, your goals, your boundaries clearly, confidently, with grace, you're educating people.
And that education might spark something in them.
It can. Sometimes subtly, sometimes more directly, it might inspire them to think about their own choices, their own values. And our sources also mention how abstinence can genuinely strengthen friendships, because you naturally start prioritizing the emotional bond over the physical, leading to deeper, more authentic connections.
Makes sense.
Of course, you have to be realistic. It can strain romantic relationships if partners have very different needs or views on intimacy. That's a real possibility. But ultimately, learning to navigate this social stuff with confidence, with clarity, it helps you build a truly supportive community. It turns potential isolation into more of a shared journey of understanding.
Okay, so we've covered the immediate shifts, the inner transformation, the social stuff. What about the long game? What does it take to sustain this path long term? What does that horizon look like?
Yeah, sustaining it definitely requires ongoing effort.
Yeah.
It's not set it and forget it. While the physical benefits, like, the reduced STI risk, they just persist inherently. The mental and emotional gains, that clarity, that self-regulation, the purpose, they need
Right.
maintenance.
How you maintain them.
Through consistent active practices, regular exercise, dedicated mindfulness or meditation, keeping up with goal setting. You have to keep tending that inner garden to prevent stagnation. Stop yourself slipping back into old patterns. It's an evolving practice, not a one-time fix.
And spiritually, does that continue to evolve?
Absolutely. For some, that spiritual growth deepens through ongoing practices like meditation or prayer. For others, their goals just naturally evolve as life changes. Maybe you shift focus from intense creative work to community leadership or mentoring younger people. It adapts with you.
This is dynamic.
Highly dynamic. There was a longitudinal study, I think, from the British Journal of Psychology in 2024, indicating that sustained abstinence actually correlated with about 30% higher life satisfaction. But when it's paired with consistent, purpose-driven activities, that's the key part. It strongly reinforces the idea that it's not just about what you stop doing, it's critically about what you start doing and keep doing with that redirected energy. This long-term view ensures abstinence stays empowering. It allows you to adapt resiliently through all of life's phases, always with intention, always with that sense of direction.
Wow, okay. What an incredible deep dive. We've really taken apart a topic that, let's be honest, most of us probably misunderstand. We've reframed abstinence today, haven't we? Not loss, but this powerful proactive gain, something that can potentially heal, strengthen your resolve, clarify your purpose, really empower you by redirecting your life force where you want it to go. Now, if you're looking for more deep dives just like this, packed with insights, you absolutely have to check out Mind Expansion Daily. Seriously, it's where we get so much of the great information that makes these conversations possible. And hey, while you're there, please do us a favor, like and subscribe to Mind Expansion Daily wherever you listen. Your support genuinely helps us keep bringing you this stuff. So we've covered a lot today about what can happen when you choose abstinence. What do you think? Do you agree with our summary? Disagree? We'd actually love to hear your perspective. Leave a comment below. Join the conversation.
Yeah, and just a final thought to leave you with as you mull this over. While this choice is obviously deeply personal, it's not for everyone, that's clear. But hopefully our deep dive today has shown that it can be a really profound journey of empowerment, one that genuinely offers the possibility of a richer, more intentional, and ultimately, more fulfilling life.